everybody. Thanks for joining us. This is one of our Tuesday community chats. I'm Eli Beckman. I'm the mayor. We've got our town manager, Todd Cusimano. We've got assistant town manager and town clerk, Rebecca Vaughn. We've got fire chief Ruben Martin. We've got our interim parks and rec director, Rochelle Grinchman Dibley, and we've got our public works director, RJ Suko, and I believe planning and building director, Adam Wolf, is on the line. And then we're also thrilled to be joined by a special guest today, the leader of the Central Marin Police Department, Chief Mike Norton. So Chief, thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate you taking the time to be here with us. We can try and focus today's questions and comments to anything related to policing matters, because it's not every day that we get to have the chief join us. And I know, Chief, you just gave recently a very helpful and insightful presentation at the town council, kind of letting us know what the overall situation with regards to crime and policing is in Corte Madera and your wider service area. So that was really helpful, and I don't know if residents may have questions related to that. I think before we open it up for the public, we'll just do a quick round of updates from any of our staff members that might have anything. I don't think I personally have too much to share other than that we're yellow tier now for COVID, which is great. So we're continuing to progress towards our reopening. And I think we're going to see a big shift on June 15th, which is when we expect the next iteration of the the county's public health order to come out. And that'll let us know, if there's a significant easing of mask restrictions, especially for folks who've been vaccinated. So I think that's something for us to look forward to. I'm going to assume everybody on this call here is vaccinated, but anyone in the community, if you for any reason have not gotten your vaccine, please do so. It is free. There's umpteen ways to do it now. I feel like we've got vaccination stations around every corner, and it's really important for us in achieving herd immunity, and really getting our immunity numbers up so that we can continue our reopening. I think Marin might still be the most vaccinated county in the state, which is awesome, but that doesn't mean that we can't continue to improve. So those are the kind of updates from my end. Do we have any other updates from any staff members on the line here? Yeah, RJ.
Yeah, just a quick update. So we started back up on the slurry seal project last week. These are important projects. They're also challenging projects because it's one of those where you just can't drive across it. It's a wet oil that needs to cure. So first, just want to say thanks for everyone for their patience and cooperation. And secondly, if you have any questions, take a look at our webpage. And if not, you can reach out to Jared Barrio is our lead, who can guide you in the right direction. And if you have any special accommodations to access or for whatever reason, just reach out, we'll help you out. And then secondly, and we've got sounds like another full week of that. So, and then hopefully we're just about at the end. And then otherwise, I can't remember if I announced this last week, we put a request for proposals out for the battery backup and solar arrays for the community center and for the corporation yard. And so we're hoping to get a lot of interest and excited to see what comes of it and get those facilities up and running on solar and battery backups.
Great stuff. And thanks, RJ. You and your team are doing a great job. And I have been copied on some of the emails, with Jared, addressing residents' concerns, and you guys are just doing a fantastic job. So professional, so helpful. So thank you for that. Any other updates from staff before we turn this over to the public? Yeah, Ruben.
Thank you, Mayor Beckman. Just want to remind members of the community that hopefully you have all done your defensible space around your homes. As many of you know that we're already in the height of fire season. And just want to let everyone who lives within the Chapman Park area and East Corte Madera, which is the Granada Hills area, or Granada Park, is that our defensible space evaluators will be out in force starting June 9th. And you should be seeing them come into your property to give you some home hardening advice and to evaluate your property for defensible space.
Great, thanks, Ruben. And are they going to come by people's houses, just like come knocking on doors, or do we have to request that they come and do an evaluation?
No, they're going to come and knock on your door. If you're home, they're going to introduce themselves and then ask for permission to step around your property. If you're not home, then they're going to do the inspections either from the roadside or from whatever they can visually see from a public right of way. We're not into going into people's yards without permission.
No home invasion.
No home invasions here.
That's great. Thank you. That's such a fantastic program. So I really appreciate you guys doing that. Any other updates from folks? Yeah, Rebecca.
Hi, thank you, Mayor Beckman. This is worth sharing. I know drought is on everyone's minds. It came up at the chat 2 weeks ago, and it comes up daily. I get lots of phone calls from people asking for more information. And MMWD did post that they are having a drought drive-up event this Saturday between 9 and 1 at their location on Nellen here in town, and then several other locations around the county. And they'll be giving out buckets that will have drought kits that include buckets to catch the water for reuse. So when you're waiting for your shower to warm up in the morning, you can catch that cold water and then use it with your plants and other things around the house. They'll include leak detection dye tablets, shut-off nozzles for your garden hose, low flow faucet aerators and shower heads, a 5-minute shower timer, and then a drive it dirty car window cling to put on your beautifully dirty car. So I highly recommend that. We've been publicizing this on our newsletter and website. If you're curious about how you can help save water or just want to help do your part, go to that event and pick up your bucket.
That is great. Thanks so much, Rebecca. I know the drought is, like fire season. I think it's one of these kind of looming natural challenges that is on everybody's mind. It's going to be a tough summer, I think. And I know for what it's worth for the folks on the line, Senator McGuire recently mentioned that the state is looking at creating some funding for cities throughout California to basically get grant funding to do drought programs, water conservation programs. So we're going to be following up with Senator McGuire's office to see if there's grant money to be had for Corte Madera, if we can put together some sort of water conservation program to help residents make these changes around their homes to catch leaks and that sort of thing to conserve water. So wanted to give that little bit there. Any other updates from anyone? And if not, we can go ahead and open this up to the public. All right, great. So we've got 2 hands up now. Everybody on the line, if you've got any questions or comments, as you know, no holds barred, whatever you want to talk about, just go ahead and throw up your hand and we'll bring you on here to share your thoughts. We're going to start with Lucinda and then go on to Jana.
Thank you, Mayor Beckman. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I just wanted to check with Chief Rubin. What was the cause of the fire in Mill Valley? Was it ever determined?
I have not read that report. I'll have to look into our record management system to see what the determination was.
Thank you. And then if we're not home when the inspectors come by, can we call them and ask them to come back when we are home?
Yes, I will get that number and I'll put it up here on the message board so that way everyone will have it.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor.
Great, thanks, Lucinda. We're going to move on to Jana, followed by Cheryl.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
I wanted to give a special thank you to our fabulous town manager, Todd Cusimano, who earlier this afternoon gave an absolutely amazing 45-minute talk about everything that's happened in Corte Madera in the last 5 years that have improved our standing in so many different ways. And I'm sorry, I don't think it was being recorded, but it certainly should have been, because he gave a very comprehensive, articulate, fast-paced, but compelling story about all the improvements that have been made in our community in the last 5 years. And it was so well received. There were at least 34 members of the Corte Madera Women's Club who were tuned in to the Zoom presentation. And I think this may be his birthday, but he was there nevertheless to fill everyone in about how lucky we all are to live in Corte Madera. And I just wanted to give a big thanks to him for that.
Thank you, Jana, and we will be sure to pass the praise along. It is Todd's kid's birthday, so that's why he, I think, is had to jump off right now. But we'll be certain to pass that along, and I think we all share your feelings of pride in his leadership.
Good.
Well, thank you very much. All right, we're going to go to Cheryl next, followed by Barbara.
Okay, hi everyone. I was also at the presentation and it was quite amazing, the breadth and detail that Todd could provide in a short amount of time. My question now is to RJ, I think. I live on Tamil Vista, and we've noticed over the last few weeks a lot of pink spray paint on the ground. And we found a fellow knocked on our door and asked to know where our gas meter was, and he couldn't tell us much about the project. He was a subcontractor. So we, Tamil Vista was nicely paved and striped and everything. And I'm just wondering what's going on. So if RJ can fill me in, I'd really appreciate it.
Yeah, so PG&E has been in town, and I don't know if this is exactly what's going on in Tamil Vista, kind of looking for suspected gas leaks. So they have been in the area in the last month or so. It's possible that's what's going on. And then also AT&T is also in town doing some additional fiber optic, mostly overhead. So it also could be them. I'm not exactly sure, but they're definitely here and have a presence. But I can try to track down a little more info on that for you.
They would notify you before they dig up anything in the street, wouldn't they?
So yeah, they would all have to get an encroachment permit, and in there they're going to have the full, we call it special kind of road moratorium restoration standards if they do have to dig into it, which we really hope they don't. But at the same time, you can't let a gas leak just keep leaking.
Oh, no.
But it would be, a very much more extensive pavement restoration in that situation. But let's hope it doesn't come to that.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Great, thank you, Cheryl. We're gonna go to Barbara next, followed by Karen.
Yes, thank you for letting me speak. Welcome, everyone. And I'm glad to have the police chief present too, because you might want to pitch in on some of my questions that I have. I'm always concerned about noise problems in the neighborhood. I believe we should all try to be good neighbors to each other and not create unreasonable noise when we don't have to. My two main concerns are barking dogs and construction noise, which takes place outside of the hours they're supposed to be working. In terms of barking dogs, there are two barking dogs up the hill from me that have been a problem for years. And I've called the police, I've written emails, I've called the town, I've talked to the owner, I've talked to her tenants, I've talked to her neighbors, I've tried everything. And she continues to leave these dogs out to bark for hours every day. I know to call Mike Moriarty if it happens during the day. It's the worst problems are at night, like around 7 o'clock at night, and especially when the weather is nice and everyone has their windows open. These dogs are out on a deck and they bark at anything that moves on the street. It's a real problem. And I've had many calls to the police over the years, and I get the distinct impression that the Central Marin Police do not want to respond to dog barking complaints. And I'm sure they think they have much more important things to do. But what remedies do we have as citizens when there's such a problem? That's my first question.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, go ahead, Chief, if you wouldn't mind.
Mayor. No, we absolutely respond to all quality of life calls. There is times though, if it's, at night depending on the night, if we're busy, we have to triage a little bit sometimes, and we might have something that takes precedence over that, but we'll absolutely get to it. Unfortunately, there's two issues here. One is construction noise, which is actually much easier for us to deal with because it's pretty straightforward. We have very distinct hours, and we can go up there, and generally we don't cite and we just shut it down. So first two parts, if you have construction noise complaints outside of the hours when code enforcement is available, absolutely call our non-emergency number, and we'll go out there and make contact and either have it shut down or cited, depending on if we've had to deal with that contractor or that house before. Barking dogs are a little trickier because the town has adopted, like all the towns in our jurisdiction, the county ordinance regarding animals. And I'd have to double check, but I believe that we have to actually be there and hear the barking dogs occurring for a certain amount of time, obviously, because like one bark wouldn't be enough. And I think we have to give a certain amount of warnings before we can do something. But if it's habitual, I would recommend just calling and getting us up there And hopefully we can come up with a remedy at the end of the day. In the old days, there were some real draconian measures where we could actually like enter the property with humane and take the dog and things like that. And that doesn't exist anymore as an option, but there are still measures for things to get done. It's just gotten a lot softer through humane and the county level over the years, at least the last 20 years, I'd say.
Well, I can tell you that in response to my phone calls, I have seen police after some length of time drive by the house after my complaint. They'll just drive by, and if they don't hear the barking right that second, they just keep on driving. And to me,
Well-
that's not a valid response to a noise complaint. But
Well, I'll be honest. We do get busy. And I think we just have to, I'll mention it to my supervisors, but we can't, obviously, it would be unreasonable for an officer to sit outside the house for 30 minutes waiting for
Right.
a dog to bark.
and I
right?
don't expect that, but
Yeah.
a couple
Somewhere in
minutes.
between makes sense, I think. And like I said, I'd be glad if you wanted to, in the chat, provide an email or something. I'd be glad to forward you the actual code too, that we have to follow. So it'd give you a little more understanding on what we have to deal with and how we have to follow.
Thank you. I do know the code. I am a lawyer.
Okay.
Just as a practical matter, it just seems to a lot of people that I've heard my neighbors say there's no remedy for barking dogs. You just have to turn up your music so you can't hear them. And that doesn't seem right to me. And in terms of construction noise, I do want to point out that on Memorial Day, there was extensive construction going on at 223 Baltimore, where they're building a new house on the hill. And I did try calling the police non-emergency number, and at first couldn't get through. I guess that was the day of the fire in Mill Valley, the bad brush fire. And I finally did get through, and but it kept going on and on. They were actually grading a hill on Memorial Day, and as far as I know from the noise ordinance, you're not allowed to do construction on a national holiday.
I'm not familiar with that. Maybe RJ could chime in on that one.
Yeah, I believe holidays, you're not supposed to be working, but I can also confirm that.
Well, okay, and so maybe it's just that we need to remind our contractors, maybe that, because I did finally myself go and talk to the owner, and he was very nice and he was very apologetic, and he shut it down right away. So he said he had no idea that was in the code. So maybe just a little more education of the contractors.
I think I don't think there's specific noise ordinance hours for holidays, but I think in terms of permitting for construction, that might be the difference between what RJ and I are talking about right now.
Well, I can see Todd is back. He might know. Todd, am I right that you should not be doing construction on national holidays? Did that make it? You're muted.
I'll track it down and put in the chat. Unless Todd knows it.
Yeah, RJ, Todd, something like that would probably be included in the conditions of approval for the project when it went through the planning commission. It would be in one of the clauses in the resolution that approved the project. So we should be able to look that up pretty quickly.
We did make a revision in our recent noise ordinance on some of the holidays. So we'll get that to you, Barbara.
Okay. Yeah, it's just a reminder. Again, I think it's just an education, like a public information campaign about it would be good. Yeah. Okay, that's it. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you, Barbara. We're going to go to Karen next, followed by David.
Hello, I actually have an agenda. I've seen at the south end of the town center that there's a sign that says Saturday and Sunday, the 19th and 20th, there's going to be e-waste collection. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I haven't seen that personally.
Okay, well, my request is that somebody find out what that information is and put it in our weekly newsletter so that everybody gets all the information.
Can do.
When I'm coming through that intersection, I can't stop and take photos of the sign without.
Karen, I saw that sign the other day and I was thinking the exact same thing. I was hoping the next time I passed through, which may be tonight, I was going to stop and take a picture.
Yeah, no,
Yes,
I've now
and we will
through twice.
do
I've got the dates and the time and the location, but I think there's a phone number and who's the source of it. So that there might be a website that I can go to and get a little more information. Okay. The next thing that I have is that I have potholes in my neighborhood, and I don't expect to give you the details about them here, but what I want to know is how to report them. I've taken photos and stuff like that. So RJ, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, you can always send it to me. Otherwise, I'll give us an extra email in the chat right now. But we do a round of potholes at least a few times a year, and we're probably gearing up for one in the next month, I believe. So it'd be good to have those and add it to the list.
Okay, thanks. I'd like to know what the date was that the chief did his report on the to the town council, so I can go back and look at the recording. Does anybody have what that is?
We can get that for you in just a sec. It was either I want to say it was the first meeting in May.
Oh, okay.
But we can
So
confirm that for you.
it was a little while ago. Okay, great.
Yeah.
And then the fourth question that I have is, so the inspectors, Ruben, are going to be over here on the east side. I'm in Meadow Creek Station. Do you know if they're going to be doing inspections along Coke Road?
If you're in the designated WUI, then yes.
Okay. Yeah, I think there's the southern end of Coke.
I believe the higher up you're closer to Ring Mountain is the
Yeah,
designated.
there's homes there that are adjacent to that open space.
Yes, correct. So they'll be going around through the complex and taking a look for any kind of issues.
But they're only doing it as far as individual residences. They're not going to have any contact with the HOA itself.
So up there, I believe you have a lot of condominiums in
Yeah.
the area. And so what they'll do is they'll walk the grounds and then send the report to the HOA president or the property management company for any kind of concerns or issues.
Okay, yeah, because a part of the property that's adjacent to the open space is HOA common area.
Yes.
Okay, all right, those are my questions. Thank you so much.
Great, thanks, Karen. And Chief Norton just put in the chat that his report to the council was on May 18th. So you can just go to the town's YouTube page and watch the video from our May 18th council meeting.
May 18th.
Mayor
Okay,
Beckman,
great.
I'm going to grab the link and put it in the chat right now.
Oh, great, thank you.
Got it up.
Look at this, full service. Great, thank you guys. Thanks, Karen. Was there anything else?
No, that's my agenda.
Okay, awesome, thank you. And we're gonna go to David next, and then we'll come back to Cheryl.
Hello.
Hi there.
First, good to see everyone. First, thanks or kudos to town for cleaning up the area around the bike path on, I guess it's San Clemente. Well, a lot of work. I think they really did a surgical job, but myself and my new dog really enjoy walking that area now. And then just a simple question, with all the slurry activity, is Marina Village targeted for that improvement?
So Marina Village is actually scheduled for paving later this summer, fall. So more of a more robust treatment.
Oh, good. That's all I have. Thank you.
Great, thank you, David. We're gonna go back to Cheryl again, followed by Lucinda.
Okay. I have a question or concern directed to Chief Norton. Chief, I have a nephew who has mental health problems. And so when when we hear these stories of that hit the newspapers of, interactions that go bad, I have a special concern. And I'm wondering what our Central Marin Police, what kind of training they have to deal with mental health situations. I really think that we've put the police in a untenable position, having to deal with everything from bank robbers to thugs and all sorts of situations, and then to deal with people who are mentally ill. It's just a range of things, situations that are very difficult. So I'm wondering what our police is trained to do and how much training they get.
That's a good question. So, we all receive a little bit of training when we're in the academy, when we first start. One thing we do above and beyond, we've been doing for the last 18 to 20 years, and Marin County was actually probably one of the first in the country to do this, was to try and cycle all our officers in the county through a 40-hour training called crisis intervention training that ranges from mental health to homeless to resources. And it teaches you, it actually has people come in and speak who have, who are bipolar. It has people who are former homeless come in and speak. And it's really helpful for our officers to hear that side of it and how someone who is bipolar interprets how we respond to them when they are manic or in a crisis. So we do get that training. I think all but maybe 4 of your 42 officers have had it at this point. We're right on top of it, but 2020, we weren't able to train hardly at all due to COVID. But there is that training, and most of the sworn officers in the county are able to go through that. That's the big thing we do. We also do constant training on, we call it verbal judo, communication skills, de-escalation, whatever you want to call it. And a lot of our scenarios and training involves mental health or, people under the influence, other than like we're talking to each other now, something's out of the ordinary, and be able to recognize when someone's under the influence as opposed to maybe they have Asperger's or something like that. So we give it as much training as possible. That being said, we are not psychiatrists. We are not psychologists. It is a problem that was basically handed to law enforcement around 1980 when all the mental health hospitals in the state pretty much closed at one point. It was around there, maybe late 70s, and everyone kind of got pushed into the street and there was no resources anymore. There's definitely a comeback coming federally, statewide, and in the county. Another great resource we have in the county is the mobile crisis unit. And these are actual, I'm not sure if they're psychiatrists, I think they're psychologists, but they're true professionals, and they're available certain hours during the week to actually respond. So on most calls nowadays, unless it's an absolute threat of safety, if it's someone in their house or a relative or something like that, we will first reach out to them and see if they want to handle the call instead of us. If they're not available, then we're all that's left. So we'll go out. And sometimes, depending on the call or if they've dealt with the person, we'll go out with them and work together. And we'll just be there as kind of a safety net. Because sometimes, unfortunately, the calls can get violent, and we're just there to try and keep everybody safe. I was our crisis intervention liaison for many years as a young officer. So this issue is really important to me, and I'm a big believer in constantly training and educating people, because it just has as you're aware, it has a high likelihood of going bad. And I think our officers, if you want to look at us compared to nationwide, we're head and shoulders above everybody when it comes to this. I would say probably statewide as well. I would say everyone in Marin is pretty good, though. Kind of a unique situation. And I'll speak on the manager's behalf because I've heard this. I know there is a push right now among all the town managers to, whether it be county funding or some sort of funding, to go forward to actually extend the hours and staffing of that mobile crisis team. So, in a perfect world, they'd be available 24/7 to help out around the county. So I know there was a push for that. I don't know if you want to chime in, Manager Kusmano.
Hey, just real quick, Chief. It looks like it's something the managers have been talking to the county administrator on to a couple of things. So one, to pull our monies, about $2 million to improve some of our homeless programs in the county for the next 5 years. And the other one, as the chief said, is this to $1 to $2 million in funding to really up our service delivery for the county for the next 5 years. And these requests would probably come to our individual councils over the next 2 months.
Okay, well, I appreciate all that information, and I appreciate what Central Marin Police have done. I recall when there was an incident at Bank of America several years ago, and I think it was a hostage situation or potential hostage situation, and it didn't turn violent. And I'm reassured by that, but yet at the same time, every situation is different. So I think I will write to the county administrator and also Supervisor Rodoni and see if we can help get this funding for those things you mentioned. So thank you.
Great, thank you, Cheryl, and a great question. And also I want to thank Chief Norton for not only the answer that he gave, but also for giving that historical context, because I think that is something that's so often left out when we talk about how we ended up in the situation that we're in, where we have our, our streets and, wild spaces crowded with homeless individuals who a lot of times have untreated mental illness. And it's like, well, how did this happen? And it, like you said, it was, a very abrupt policy change in the 80s that really kind of delivered this crisis onto our doorstep, and we're still trying to figure out a way back out of it. So I appreciate you bringing up, I think, that side of the story that I think is kind of glossed over way too often. So
I will point out one more thing. In addition to being in charge of the mental health liaison for our department back in the day, I was also in charge of our hostage negotiations teams. A lot of people don't know, for a small department, we actually have it's called CNT nowadays, crisis negotiation team. But we carry usually about 6 of our officers are fully trained crisis negotiators out of the 42. And the manager might remember that Bank of America call, because he was a brand new sergeant or captain, or I don't remember, but I know I was on the phone with that individual for a little bit, and we were able to talk him out successfully. So it's just one more thing where we have the ability to have some good training that, it's just beneficial. You use it every day if you get that good training.
great, thank you. We're gonna come back to Lucinda now.
Thanks, Mayor. I would really like to take it away from us public and turn it over to Chief Norton so we can hear from him. We've already taken more than half an hour, and I'm sorry to my other citizens, but can we just go to Chief Norton now? Thanks.
Oh, sure. I don't know if the chief had any, like prepared remarks or anything. I think he was maybe just kind of tuning in as a special guest here for folks to ask him any questions they may have. Chief, if you had anything that you wanted to share with us, please, by all means.
Yeah, the one thing I will share, and this is kind of you're going to be hearing this for the next couple months from me and Chief Martin, and I'll let Chief Martin, we'll kind of tag team this together, is pretty exciting. We're getting close to doing the public rollout for Zonehaven, which is our evacuation software and protocol we're going to be using for all emergencies. But I think what's on everyone's mind, especially like with the wind yesterday, is fire. And we're still learning it. We're trying to push it out ahead of schedule just because of fire season seemed to arrive pretty early. And with the drought, we want to get people starting to learn their zones. We have a lot of great CERT teams and NRG teams with their own divisions, but we want to show that these will be the evacuation zones that are coming out. And there's going to be a big public push for that. But I'm excited to finally have something that is cloud-based, that is a living document that we can use, that the public can use. And right now it's being built up pretty much all over the Bay Area. A lot of counties have already gone live with it over the last year or so. And Marin County should be going live with it, hopefully by the end of the month. I've been working on it, and that is one thing we're very excited about, because that's a huge help for us as a tool. But there's going to be a lot of re-education on evacuation too, because the way we taught evacuations 20 years ago, 10 years, 5 years ago is very different than I think we're going to be doing it going forward. The days of, oh, there's a wildfire, let's evacuate Chapman Park or Christmas Tree Hill down to the school or town park, those days are pretty much over, because the way fires react and the potential for something catastrophic is we're really going to be encouraging people to actually leave town and possibly leave the county, which is what we've seen in Sonoma County. Living in Sonoma County, luckily I was never forced to evacuate, but I was on a list where I loaded up my car and it looked like we were going to evacuate during the first round of fires. But having gone through it, there's a lot of good lessons learned over the last few years, and we just really need to push that out. And I'm excited that that's going to be coming. And that's kind of the biggest new news I have, other than the fact that life seems to be getting back to more to normal from this time last year in 2020. You're seeing more traffic. We're starting to get some of our crime stats are going back to where they kind of were before. Not really surprising, but just to be much more aware of driving around and things like that. And especially with children out and about again, and with summer coming, you're gonna have little kids riding their bikes around, and we just need to be more aware, because it was it's pretty easy to drive around in April 2020 and you didn't see anybody all day as you're driving around. So everyone's got to kind of relearn how to drive properly and things like that. And that's really all I wanted to say.
Great, thank you. Lucinda, did you have any other questions or anything?
No, thank you.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, we've got a few more hands up for folks who have questions. So we're going to go to Susie and then Patty and then back to Cheryl.
Hi, everybody. Todd keeps disappearing. I was going to reiterate with him how nice it was to have him at our women's club today, and what he should really know what Jonna said, because she doesn't call in as regularly. And so it was a very purposeful call that she made. So somehow make sure he hears that. But
we absolutely will.
Yeah.
Oh, Susie, was Donna correct that it wasn't recorded?
You know, I didn't do it. I bet it wasn't. And
Okay.
I'm not the one that started the Zoom. I think it was our president, and I didn't. Usually you can see, I don't know. I'll find out. Okay. I'll check with her and let you know. I'm concerning Ruben, this is kind of for you. First of all, I've said this to you recently, that I think that the fire safe webinar that was on last week, that was just incredible. And I hope people will go and watch that again. It was extremely good. But what I've noticed is that the grounds that are on the overpass, from east side Corte Madera to west side Corte Madera, you know, whatever we used to call them, clover leaves, but I don't know what they call them now. And I know that it's Caltrans' responsibility. We dealt with them last year and the year before. We had to write letters, I know, to get them to take down some of the dead trees and stuff that were out there. But I noticed driving over there today, the grass is getting very, very dry there, and there are still dead trees out in that center. So maybe the town can lean on Caltrans a little bit, because here we are asking our community members to do the vegetation clearance. And I think it is not a good example to see that out there on the overpass area. I mean, there truly are dead trees. There should only be 1 or 2 trees out there, and the rest should be pretty much ironed out flat. So I'd really like to see that happen. And if you need us to write Caltrans, you know, we can get some people to do that. So Todd, you're back. But what I really wanted to say was thank you so much for today. And Jonna really said it all. I don't know if you were able to hear what she said, but she called in, and, you know, she doesn't do that regularly. And you did a fantastic presentation to us. It was really appreciated.
Thank you, Susie. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
So we did partner with to your question, we partnered with the chamber, the town, and the Corte Madera Community Foundation. So Caltrans does cleanup and vegetation management probably twice a year. They just don't have the staff to keep up on it. So we entered an agreement with them. RJ took the lead on that. And so we are able to go out on their property. We pulled together some monies to clean up vegetation the way we want it cleaned up from a safety aspect. So the unfortunate side is, if we want to do extra, we need to pull our monies and do it. We have done it, so that's the good news. And so I'll talk to RJ, and we'll go out there and evaluate it and clean it up as necessary, to your point.
Well, I'm glad that we can do it. I'm glad it will be our responsibility. And I realize it means more money, but I do think, besides it being a fire danger, I do think we need to set, the town needs to set an example. You know, so that's all. I think that would be great. And I'm really proud. I've done some clearing here at my own house, and I'm even in, you know, an area that is not as going to be affected as much, but it feels good. So thank you for all your encouragement with all the fire safety stuff. And thanks again, Todd, for today.
Thanks, Susie.
Thank you. Great, thank you, Susie. We're gonna go to Patty next, and then back to Cheryl.
Howdy. Yeah, I wanted to also chime in on how amazing Todd's presentation was. And I looked during the presentation to see if I saw the little recording light, and sadly I did not. So I'm afraid we lost it. So I'm sure he won't mind doing that whole thing over again. The other question that I had was about the Zone Haven. Are we going to have drills when the CMPA building was being constructed, they said we're going to have a townwide evacuation drill when the building's done. Well, the building's done, and now I think NRGs are the ones that are running drills. I don't know if this would be for, I guess, both Chief Martin and Chief Norton, if there is going to be some kind of a evacuation drill scenario now that we have the zone haven. It seems like it would be easier to do that. And then the last thing is, I was reminded by Susie's comments, the other side of the fence on Casa Buena, the freeway side, is that Caltrans that keeps the weeds down there, or is the town doing that, or is this another one of those joint things? Thanks.
Maybe I can answer that joint one on Zone Haven. Patty, good question. I think first, both Chief Norton and myself need to get comfortable with the platform on how it works, how it functions, seeing it rolled out this summer, and then maybe implement something in early next spring to try to use it. I'd hate to start an evacuation drill with a new platform right in the dead heat of summer during fire season before all of us are completely comfortable with using it. I don't know if you agree or disagree there, Mike.
Yeah, I agree. And really what I think is there's going to be a new type of training and education on how we want people to evacuate. So I know a lot of those drills where go to the bottom of the hill, here's a flyer. I don't want people evacuating within the town. You know, if it's an earthquake, that's different, but we're talking about a major fire. And I think too, one thing we're really going to be looking at re-educating on is not to panic and evacuate when you smell smoke or you hear a siren. What we're seeing, especially in Corte Madera, and I'm able to compare it to San Anselmo that doesn't have a lot of preparedness. And preparedness is good and preparedness is important. But sometimes people are so hyper vigilant at the first hear of a siren, the first smell of smoke, they start self-evacuating. And that actually has the potential to be incredibly dangerous on a place like Chapman Park or Christmas Tree Hill or Madrone Canyon and Larkspur, where you can actually clog up and slow down the ability for your first responders to get there. Most of the fires are not mass evacuation fires. In 20 years, we haven't had to do a mass evacuation in any of our jurisdiction. We've had to evacuate a few houses, you know, maybe 3 houses, maybe 10 at most, but we haven't had to do that big event. That doesn't mean it can't happen. It doesn't mean we shouldn't practice for it, but that is not the norm. And I'm sure Ruben will attest to this. Most of our fires we have are contained to an acre, a half acre, maybe 2, or it's a garage, or maybe it's a whole building, unfortunately, and someone loses their home. But it's very rare. And I honestly can't think of something in 20 years where we've lost 4 homes at once or 5 homes, or we've had a massive grass fire or something like that here. That's part of that is because, as the chief said, we oversend resources to these. You know, you'll have one house fire and I hear 4 or 5 alarms. You know, you got like 4 fire trucks rolling up there. You throw everything at it imaginable just so it cannot spread. But that only works if people are not panicking and clogging up the streets, for lack of a better term. And you know, our hills are just, that's how they're engineered. They're incredibly tight. 2 cars can't pass on most of our streets when you get up in the hills. So I think that's one thing we really need to educate is to calm down initially and be ready for it. If we have a grass fire or a fire, I will tell you this, that I am going to over evacuate and send out the evacuation orders well in advance. And we've learned that from Sonoma County. Is they're just like, if there's a chance of it, we're going to do it. But there has to at least be a chance of it first. We're not going to do it on a garage fire. Oh, evacuate the whole hill. You know, we have to see where we're at or something like that. In terms of the training, we, just so people know, even though we might not have done neighborhood training, part of that is I don't want to get the neighbors and the citizens in the habit of, oh, when we evacuate, I meet at the bottom of the hill or I go to town park, because all that's going to do is possibly make us have to evacuate you again out of town when we have other things we're dealing with. We have limited resources. Once you get in the car to evacuate, you need to leave town, for lack of a better term. And my goal is early warnings so that I'll do a voluntary evacuation before a mandatory. And honestly, the voluntary is when everyone should be leaving, CERT, NRG, and the residents. It's not mandatory at that point. but there's no reason to stick around. Go make a day of it, make a night of it, get out of town. And if you're prepared and ready to go, that's really where our certain energies come in. So you are able to, I know what I need to evacuate quickly. I know I got a pet carrier, I got pet food, I got this, I got that, my photos are ready to go. So the drills, they have value, but the actual physically leaving of residences, unless our drill is going to be leave the county or leave the town, that's what I want, because that's what I want people to do. And I don't know if that really makes sense or not. We'll talk about it. I will say that even though we haven't been having community drills, the old fashioned style, CMFD and CMPA train at least once a year, tabletop, and we cross train on how we respond to things. We did even some training right before COVID where we had some of the battalion chiefs come in and just teach us about wildland fire, so we understand it better, so we don't panic, and we know how to, since we're going to be out there evacuating, what makes sense. And me and Ruben are constantly talking about this, and it's an evolving beast. It's not just like, oh, this is what we learned and we've been doing this for the last 3 years. It changes every year, and how we view it changes every year. And it's all about learning and lessons learned. And that's how, we use police use of force, and everything I do in my business is a constantly evolving thing. And that's how we treat this. So it's my number one concern outside of crime. I know it's Ruben's number one concern. And if there's some drills or community drills that make sense, we will definitely do that. But I think the big thing is a lot of education and a lot of understanding of what to do when we tell you to do something. If that makes sense.
Yeah,
I was
agree with-
surprised to see the recommendation to shelter in place on the ones over the weekend, over the holiday weekend. And they explained that it was so that you wouldn't be clogging the access for the vehicles to be able to get there and fight the fire. So that was a very good thing. And I was also thrilled to hear that there were 10 units sent to fight the half-acre fire. So that's fabulous and very reassuring. One idea that came up, I think, at the disaster council meeting was not to evacuate, but to have a faux pack your car, see how long that takes you to gather your family, gather your pets. And maybe we could do one of those kind of drills where nobody goes anywhere, but you get ready to go.
Yeah, and those are those 2-minute fire drills, or what we used to call exit drills in the home. Basically, it's like, okay, fire drill, let's go. You've got 2 minutes, grab what you need and meet at the car. And that may be more valuable than anything else. As Chief Norton had mentioned, the number one thing for you as a resident when we tell you to evacuate is, and I can't overemphasize this, is don't go to Town Park, don't go to the bottom of the hill. You basically need to get on 101, either go north, south, east, or east, in our cases. And for me, who was an evacuee of the Kincaid fire, they gave me the notice as an evacuation warning. We packed the car. So when the evacuation order came through, we got in our car and started driving. And we drove east because we figured, okay, they're going to evacuate everybody at least to the Santa Rosa city limits. I just need to get anywhere out of town. So we ended up in the Sacramento area. So that's how far you may have to go. And that's why we recommend having a phone tree of friends that live outside of the area where you may be able to have a place to stay, or have maybe a favorite hotel you like to stay at when you go out of town, somewhere down that line. And then going back to what Chief Norton had said is, this is at the frontmost of our worries at night. He has crime and evacuating, Christmas Tree Hill. Christmas Tree Hill keeps me up at night all summer long, at least until we get some rain on the ground. Just because I'm fearful of getting people out of there, and how are we going to get the community out in a calm, orderly fashion. And the biggest thing the homeowners can do is be prepared, exit when we tell you to leave, and do it orderly and respectfully with your neighbors. Try not to panic, and trust that both Mike and I are going to pull the pin and tell you to get out well ahead of time. We have talked about it over and over again. We are not going to wait. If you need to evacuate, we are going to pull the pin. And best case scenario, it was a good drill and we caught the fire and you can come home.
Yeah, our whole thing is, my whole thing is, you can be as mad as you want with me if I Chicken Little, the sky is falling, and tell everyone to leave. I can live with that. I don't want to be waiting and then go, man, I should have done it earlier. And we really saw that with the Sonoma County Sheriff. Is Now, in fairness, that was unprecedented what they faced that first time. They had no idea something like that could go that fast, and it was crazy. But you notice the second time around, he did like a crazy evacuation all the way to the coast. And I was like, wow, that's pretty extreme. And he's like, hey, lesson learned. Everyone leave. And then for us, we don't have the people there, right? The people have left. We have time to fight the fire. We have time to get the few evacuees who maybe can't leave on their own and things like that. But the big thing for the NRG is not so much, and CERT isn't so much teaching people how to evacuate. It's getting people prepared to evacuate, right? It's teaching them that the drill with the car. That's a great thing for NRG or CERT to do with your community members and your groups. Getting them mentally prepared for it. Because I've thought about, oh, there's a fire, I'll leave the house. But when you have like 2 hours and you might be evacuating and you're going through your house and going, what do I take? What makes sense to take in my SUV? And I was like having a fight with my wife over this because she was grabbing some things. I go, that's replaceable. That's nothing. What's important? And to me, it was a hard drive with photos. It was our pets, it was my credit cards and like my laptop. And I'm like, that's really all I need. Everything else can be replaced, right? But not getting tied up in that. And mentally having gone through it once, and I'm sure Ruben can, you kind of go, okay, I'm ready for the next time. And, and I think if it's either done through your fire and police department or at the NRG level, just getting people to mentally accept that is a big first step. Don't worry about shuttling your cars down the hill. Your cars are probably insured. That'll be replaced. And there's always all those little things, like try and keep a half tank, at least in your gas, because gas stations ran dry in Sonoma County during that evacuation, the first one. That could happen again, right? But yeah, it's just a constant communication. If you want, I can just give a quick peekaboo of Zonehaven. You think that's okay, Ruben? Just a snapshot?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm going to share my screen if that's okay with you, Mayor.
Yeah, please.
I'm not going to go too into this because it's not finalized, but I just want people to at least see what we're talking about a little bit. Okay, can everyone see that?
Yep.
So that's the Bay Area. And as you zoom in, you'll start to see who is working on Zonehaven. You see all those little boxes. Those are evacuation zones around the Bay Area. These are all going to Zonehaven. These are people either working on it or they've gone live. I want to say Marin County has something like 360 evacuation zones. Oops, I went a little too far there. These are done with local knowledge. It's me and your fire officials, but more importantly, it's using math. It's using logarithms based on population density and roads. And so it kind of was cool. We looked at how they did it and how they broke these zones up, and they ended up making a lot of sense based on how streets are and where population is. But this is basically how we're going to be activating these is you're going to have a know your zone. Your zone, let's say if you live in Chapman Park, is going to be COR E007, but we also named that, Chapman Park. And our goal is down the road, and here's like Christmas Tree Hill, right? This is kind of Marina Vista, Wilshire. You can kind of get an idea. And then open space has zones as well. And the reason for this is so you don't have to think about, I don't know why that's locked up all of a sudden. I'm going to stop sharing because my computer just locked up. There we go. But the reason for having those is, to know your zone. So if you get a Nixle alert, if you get what's it called? I'm drawing a blank.
Alert Marin.
Alert Marin, the old reverse 911. You'll know, oh, that is me that has to go. And by having the zones broken up it's very nice for us. It's one way we can manage traffic flow too. So to prevent that mass hysteria of just clogging up the roads, we might be like, all we really need right now is Marina Vista and Wilshire. I know Christmas Tree Hill is nervous, but let's just activate that. And then 30 minutes later, let's do Christmas Tree Hill. And 30 minutes after that, let's see how traffic's flowing. Then we'll do Chapman. And it gives us some more options that we didn't have before to actually use some science behind how we evacuate. But all of those, as you can tell, depend on people not just leaving the town, but probably the county. And that's a big thing we're going to stress. So that is coming. And we're looking forward to that. And one of the cool things about that is you can actually tabletop train on that. So fire and police, we can do training where we create virtual fires and have to go through the evacuation drill and get some ideas for like how it spreads and how quick and things like that. And, you know, the more we train, the less it's a big deal when something really happens.
The
That
other
is great.
question that came up at the committee meeting was about the fire for Mill Valley did not show up on the Nixle, and learned that it was because it wasn't in our zip code. So I like to inform people that they should register with Pulse Point. And then if you have questions about something going on, it'll probably alert you with Pulse Point.
Great, thank you, Patty. Really good questions there, and thank you, Chief Norton and Chief Martin, for that really in-depth response there, and thanks for showing us a little peek under the hood there. That was really helpful. We've got, I think, time for one more question, and our last hand up is from Cheryl, so we will go to her.
I have two questions, but I'll defer one. I'd like to volunteer my tri-shop, Gertrude Peddle, the residents over at Casa Buena. And I looked just on the town website and I don't see a contact there. I know that it's not being managed by Homeward Bound, it's managed by another organization and I don't even remember the name. So if you could give me that contact, who I should contact to volunteer over there, I'd appreciate it.
Rebecca, do you happen to know? I think it's
Yes.
either Catholic Charities or Opening Doors.
Yes, but I can put Cheryl in touch with a couple people that will be able to get her message about her services and her offer out to them.
Okay,
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, Cheryl, you can go ahead and ask your other question.
Oh, okay. Well, my second question is about evacuation. And I've always thought, well, I've got my electric bike. and seriously, I think traffic is likely, I mean, even with a phased evacuation, since I live on Tamil Vista, it's a main thoroughfare, it's likely to be backed up. So I think I guess I could get across the Richmond Bridge and even take my partner across with the Trishaw. So I guess I don't want that alternative forgotten. More and more people have cargo bikes and can take passengers and can get out of town that way too. I'm just wondering,
Something
Chief
to
Norton.
consider when being in a vehicle is even a lot of people get fearful or their anxiety goes up because they're sitting in traffic during an evacuation. You're safe in your vehicle, even though you're in traffic. It may take you 2 hours or so to get out of town, but you're still safe in your vehicle as long as you're down on the valley floor. And that's the big thing to remember. You're gonna maybe in your vehicle, it may take some time. It took me 2.5 hours to get out of Sonoma County to get onto Highway 12 to get into the east or go to Sacramento. However, there was at no point that I felt that I was unsafe because I left early and I left when I was told to do so.
Okay.
I think too, it's kind of a tough choice, but in a fast moving fire that is coming, you are, correct me if I'm wrong, Chief, you are safer in your vehicle than out on foot or on a bicycle because of it's the heat and smoke that gets you, not the flames.
Correct. It's taking a big gulp of that superheated air will then cause some burns inside your airway.
I think
that's what we're trying to prevent.
And for me, I mean, if you have a friend in Point Richmond who has a place that you could go crash at, that seems viable. But if you don't, I mean, you might not be returning home for several days. And I don't know, if you're not gonna take your car, the one thing about a car is in a pinch, you know what? You can spend the night in a Walmart parking lot a county away and have some security and have that. And we saw that in Petaluma. I mean, all our parking lots just look like, refugee centers. And it was just a lot of people. Some people were in a Honda Civic, reclined the seat, and they slept like that with their 3 dogs or what have you. You are limiting your options a little bit with the bicycle, even though it's an electric bike, and recharging it and everything that comes with it. So just take that into consideration.
Okay, thank you. And that's a good perspective. I appreciate that.
Great. Well, thank you, Cheryl. That's all the time that we've got today. Huge thanks to all our staff for joining us, and special thanks to Chief Norton for making the time to be here with us. We really appreciate it. And thanks, of course, to all the residents who joined us and asked fantastic questions. It's really good to see that everybody's thinking critically about, all the challenges we face, but especially this looming fire season. So You know, great job, everybody. And thanks so much, everybody, for participating. And we will talk soon.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, everybody.